Sigue en sintonía de nuestra programación.
Los conceptos vertidos en este espacio son de exclusiva responsabilidad de la persona o institución que los emite.
En este momento inicia su programa Los Vientos del Saber con Carmen Piñeyro. Abordaremos temas de política, inmigración, finanzas, educación y muchos temas de interés para la comunidad. Puedes participar en vivo llamando al 1-888-900-2811, extensión 6. ¡Comenzamos!
Buenas noches, mi querido público. Nuevamente, bienvenidos a Los Vientos del Saber. Hoy en día tenemos a una persona sumamente importante para el Distrito 8 del Senado Estatal del Estado de Nueva York. Nuestro actual senador, el senador John Brooks, que está nuevamente reeligiéndose para esta posición y que necesitamos el apoyo de todos ustedes este martes 6 de noviembre a que salgan a votar para que él continúe haciendo el trabajo que ha venido desempeñando los 2 últimos años. So we have an amazing person tonight here with us in the show. So I'm going to be going back and forth from English to Spanish and translating what he says in English to Spanish because we want to make sure you hear what he has to say. So you also hear the programs that he has brought to our communities, the funding that he has brought to our community, and why it's so important that we make sure that he gets reelected as our senator for the 8th District of the New York State Senate. Entonces, ya como le dije, esta persona es importantísima para nuestra comunidad, ha traído fondos necesarios para nuestras escuelas y nuestras comunidades. Entonces vamos a escuchar un poquito de quién es John Brooks. So who is John Brooks?
Who is John
Welcome.
Brooks? Thank you.
Bienvenido.
John Brooks is somebody that's resided on Long Island a long time. My family goes back in Seaford to the 1600s.
Wow.
And I'm really proud of that. The community means a great deal to me, and I've dedicated my life to serving the community. I joined the fire department in 1969 and rose to the office of chief of the department. I also served on the school board for a number of years. I was instrumental in starting our community Christmas tree lighting.
Excellent.
Involved in the Hysterical Society, the American Legion, and several other community groups. And you know, I take a lot of pride in the fact that my family has been in the town for so long, and I'm fortunate my son and his family now reside in Seaford, so the generations go on.
Beautiful.
And we try to work on that.
Excelente. Entonces nuestro senador nos acaba de decir que su familia ha estado en Long Island desde los 1600, imagínense, inmigrantes de 1600, entonces son generación tras generación, residente del pueblo Saber, y él está básicamente ahí desde hace mucho tiempo y actualmente su hijo también vive ahí, pero lo más importante de todo es que él ha sido miembro del departamento de bomberos de Saber desde 1969, fue jefe de bomberos de este departamento y también sirvió como miembro de la Junta Escolar de Saber por muchos años. Ustedes saben que es importante que tengamos una persona que sepa las dificultades que nuestras escuelas públicas están pasando y las cosas que pasan. Entonces imagínense, de 1600 él reside ahí. And John, you mentioned something about that. You also have some family in Freeport. You know, I gotta make sure we talk about that because
the family lines. It's the Southern family, the Verity family, the Rayner, and the Vidal families. And we just got some information from the Baldwin families, and they may be mixed in there too. They're doing some research.
Wow, imagínense. Entonces, no solamente él reside en Long Island desde 1600, sino también que aparte de ser miembro de Saber, su familia también fueron los Bedell, los Rayners de nuestra comunidad en Freeport. Así que tenemos una persona que va a seguir peleando sumamente fuerte para que Long Island, específicamente a las comunidades de Roosevelt, Freeport, Merrick, Belmore, Wanta, Seaford, Massapequa Park, Copiague, Amityville, Lindenhurst,
yep.
and a part of North Babylon, right?
We go North Babylon, Wyandanch, Wheatley Heights.
Wyandanch and Wheatley
Farmingdale.
Heights. And Farmingdale. East Farmingdale. So ya saben, si ustedes tienen familia en esos pueblos que acabamos de decir, if you have family in those towns that we just mentioned, you need to get on that phone and you need to make sure to please tell them to support our state senator, John Brooks. And if you want more information about John Brooks, you can go to his website at brooks2018.com. Si ustedes quieren saber un poco más de la historia de nuestro senador Brooks, ustedes pueden entrar a su página cibernética, que es www.brooks2018.com, y ahí están viendo ahora mismo en la pantalla la página de nuestro senador y algunas de las cosas que él ha hecho para nuestra comunidad. Así que es sumamente importante porque ahí ustedes pueden averiguar e informarse de cualquier otra cosa que no lleguemos a tocar aquí esta noche en el programa. So John, you know, our audience wants to know, what has John been able to accomplish in the last 2 years? What have you been able to work in the state budget? What kind of legislation and what kind of funding have you brought to our communities?
Well,
yo le acabo de preguntar al senador que cuáles son las cosas que él ha podido legislar los 2 últimos años, qué tipo de fondos ha traído a nuestras comunidades.
So, one of the things we learned from what we thought government was like in high school and the reality of government, when you're in Albany and you're the minority, it's tough to get things done.
Absolutamente.
Over the 2 years, I introduced a total of 49 bills. But one bill was moved, and that bill was a bill to provide some assistance to a police officer who became gravely ill from a pension standpoint.
Okay.
So what you have to do then is to find workarounds on certain things. You know, my passion going to Albany, one of the cornerstones was school funding. In the 1990s, I was on the school board in Seaford. My opponent makes reference to it in the campaign in the taxes. Well, what he doesn't understand is Seaford, our school district, we had one of the lowest per student spending rates in Nassau County. Our teachers were in the lowest quadrant of pay, and our superintendent was, in fact, the lowest paid superintendent. But we had the highest tax rate. And that was a result of the failures in our way of funding education. Seaford is a community that had no commercial property, and the formulas that we used to determine state aid resulted in very limited state aid. So the vast majority of costs for education was paid for on the backs of our homeowners. And I began then working very hard on ways of changing the way we fund education and taking things into consideration. And, you know, as I say, my opponent strikes out with the tax increases were during that period of time. But the spending levels, in terms of everybody else, was exceptionally low. And it's one of the keys to Albany. You really have to be able to understand how these systems work. To say somebody's taxes is too hard, you're doing a bad job. No. The way we fund education is wrong and broken.
Absolutely.
So I went up there to make changes in the way we fund education and still working on that.
And it's interesting that your opponent is bringing something that is almost 20 years ago,
yeah, it's a little
right?
Over, right? Yeah.
And obviously funding then was completely different.
Sure.
And as we all know, I'm a former school board member myself, and you're correct in that the way our schools, public schools, are funded, it's archaic. It brings undue stress, not only to our administrators and teachers and parents, but also, you know, the community as taxpayers. Yep. But the reality is that, you know, people tend to say that, and now we have, you know, the 2% tax cap and so forth, but you can't compare apples to oranges because each community is completely different. So, regresando a traducir lo que John dijo al principio, él introdujo 49 enmiendas legislativas en el Senado, solamente una no pasó. una de las cosas que él ha enfocado en el Senado es la fórmula de cómo se llegan los fondos a las escuelas públicas de Long Island. Él estaba mencionando, el senador Brooks estaba mencionando que su contrincante lo estaba atacando porque cuando él fue miembro de la Junta Escolar en los años 90, ¿verdad?, cuando el sistema era totalmente diferente, hubieron incrementos a los impuestos locales del distrito, específicamente de Saber. Pero lo que el oponente de nuestro senador Brooks no habla es que Saber en ese entonces tenía al superintendente que ganaba menos dinero, el gasto menos costoso por estudiante en aquel entonces, al igualmente que los profesores no estaban ganando los fondos adecuados para educar a los estudiantes. Entonces, estábamos haciendo el comentario de que la fórmula de traer fondos a Long Island y a las escuelas públicas está arcaica, ¿verdad? Es totalmente diferente y eso es lo que él ha estado peleando para saber cómo traer los fondos. So, in response to your opponent, because we won't name him, because we don't give free publicity to individuals that don't care for the entire 8th senatorial district. And this is myself, Carmen Piñeyro Sena. It's not Senator Brooks' opinion in that sense. Okay. So I just want to make sure, because then people tend to put words into people's mouth, and we got to make sure we get it clear across. So now that you are there, and you already saw what happened in the 90s with school fundings, I know for a fact that communities ended up getting some amazing grants and they used it as fit. So can you talk a little bit about that? Yo le acabo de preguntar cuál es como su experiencia de lo que él vivió en los años 90 y los fondos que él trajo ahora para las escuelas del Distrito 8 del Senado.
So, from an educational standpoint, first, on the broader sense, we were able to bring some additional state aid to Long Island, to some of our school districts. More directly to the districts that we have within our 8th senatorial district. We have a number of districts with some significant challenges.
Absolutely.
We have districts that are facing many unanticipated problems in many ways. As you know, we've changed the way we test students for learning disabilities. And what we're seeing is significant increases in the number of students who have learning disabilities. And right now we're not providing the funding for the additional training that they need. Another thing that we're seeing is the number of special ed students is growing in many districts. And again, they're not getting the proper funding from the state on those. And then probably most notably, many of our school districts are seeing a large influx of students from other areas that come to the school districts with little or no understanding of the English language, many cases far behind in education, again, with no financial assistance. So it is a big challenge right now as we start there. In the case of this past year, we were trying to get some additional funds for some of those districts. In the final days of the session, Republicans blocked that. In fact, they shut down the operation.
Really? But they brag about,
they brag.
You know, that they're all about Long Island, they're all about, our school system and education. So I'm surprised that they will block something that would benefit specifically the Long Island districts and education.
So let's deal with some reality.
Ironic.
In Long Island, we say that Long Island gets 12% of the total state aid. Right? Let's see that. That's Nassau and Suffolk County. When you look at the individual counties, Nassau County gets 4% of this total aid. It funds 18% of the cost of education. It's the second lowest funded county in the state of New York. Suffolk County gets 8%. It funds about 30%. In both cases, our counties are primarily funding local education locally by means of residential property taxes. And that's why we have some of the highest residential property taxes in the United States. We don't get a fair share of funding.
Absolutely. And you have to understand that the cost of living in Long Island is way higher than other areas of the state of New York. And it does have an indirect impact because we send $1 and we only get, I think, 69 cents back? Not even?
Not even.
Not even anymore. Not even 69 cents to the dollar. So the burden of making sure to cover the cost between, what the state sends downstate to us and the local school boards is through the local property taxes assessment that the taxes are being raised. Entonces, miren la complicada situación que hay. Entonces, el contrincante de nuestro senador Brooks y los republicanos, que la mayoría son los 9 son de Long Island, bloquearon fondos adicionales que iban a venir a nuestros distritos escolares de Long Island, ¿verdad? Solamente Long Island recibe 12% de los fondos, 12% de los fondos del estado de Nueva York. Nassau County recibe 4% y el condado de Suffolk recibe 8%, que básicamente es para reírse. Porque Long Island, el costo de vida de Long Island es muchísimo más alto que otras áreas del estado de Nueva York. 1. 2. Mandamos más dinero al Capitolio y solamente recibimos menos de 69 centavos al dólar. Entonces lo que eso implica es que la diferencia de los fondos recibidos por el Estado a los fondos locales que hay que levantar cae entre el senador y yo, ¿verdad? Porque vivimos aquí en Long Island, entonces lo suben a través de los impuestos locales de nuestras viviendas. Por eso es que Long Island, Nassau y Suffolk tienen uno de los taxes de propiedad para las escuelas más alta, porque no estamos recibiendo los fondos adecuados del Capitolio estatal para que merecemos, ¿verdad?, por estudiante. Entonces esto trae un caso así. Entonces esto es lo que el senador Brooks ha estado peleando en Albany, que ese tipo de fondo, ¿verdad?, que Nassau County, donde vivimos la mayoría de nosotros, es el segundo condado que recibe menos fondos. We receive less A. We're the second county, second lowest. La segunda más baja del estado de Nueva York en recibir los fondos estatales. Así que imagínense, si nosotros seguimos llevando al senador Brooks el 6 de noviembre, tal vez el contrincante que bloqueó los fondos adicionales que vinieran para nosotros no va a pelear para que nosotros y nuestras escuelas reciban los fondos necesarios. La otra cosa que el senador aclaró es que todos los distritos dentro del distrito 8 que el senador Brooks representa tienen diferentes necesidades. Por ejemplo, hay distritos escolares que llegaron un influx de estudiantes transientes y los fondos no estaban ahí para ayudarlo. Está la problemática de los estudiantes especiales, ¿verdad?, de educación especial, los estudiantes que necesitan ayuda adicional, los fondos no están ahí. So, I just finished translating what you said about special education not being funded accordingly.
Right.
The number of influx of students that came to various school districts without funding allocated for, and the importance of that. In addition, I said, Lauren, hi Lauren, that's one of your voters.
Okay.
She's saying thank you for bringing this to light. She's a teacher, and she watches the show all the time. Of course, we got to make sure we all hear and learn, and what better way than to have our senator here so he can directly tell you how our communities are being impacted funding-wise. Entonces, I finished translating. I'm talking to you in Spanish. I finished translating what you said in Spanish, but I also talked about what you said, that Nassau County is the second lowest, in getting this funding and the implications that it brings. And I talked about how the Republicans are always in the Senate from Long Island are always saying that they are the ones that bring the most funding here, but now they blocked funding that was necessary for us.
They blocked it, and then certainly this year, before we got to Albany, the tables were turned upside down with the new federal tax law. And as you recall, that law was passed in December of last year, the closing days of the year. That law established a cap on the deductibility of state and local taxes or SALT expenses Fortunately, in the closing days of last year, Governor Cuomo signed an executive order that let us prepay certain expenses in advance, certain tax bills, to save those deductions. The legislature, when we went into session, decoupled the state income tax rules from the federal tax rules so that our state income taxes will remain the same. But we're in a situation now where our state and local taxes, which includes property taxes, sales taxes, income taxes, the deductibility is capped at $10,000, which is going to present a major problem to folks.
Absolutely.
And the forecast impact is going to be an additional $18 billion in taxes statewide. Now, when we look at Long Island, and just to use a simple example.
Let me translate.
Okay.
So, él acaba de decir, básicamente, que ustedes saben que el gobierno federal a finales del 2017 cambiaron las leyes de la deductibilidad de los impuestos de la escuela, de las propiedades, y el gobernador Cuomo pasó una ley ejecutiva que nos permitió a nosotros poder prepagar los impuestos para poder tomar ventaja de eso. Aparte de eso, la legislatura en conjunto con el Senado estatal pasaron una enmienda donde mantenían la deductibilidad de los impuestos al nivel del estado de Nueva York en la planilla de impuestos para poderlo deducir, pero eso está trayendo un caos totalmente impactante para nosotros los residentes de Long Island, porque ya no podemos deducir esos impuestos. Vamos a ir a unos anuncios de nuestros patrocinadores. We're going to go to some commercials from our sponsors, and when we come back we're going to continue with our bright and amazing Senator John Brooks. Cuando regresemos continuamos.
Sigue en sintonía de nuestra programación.
La Tribuna Hispana USA es el periódico para los que leemos en español. En circulación desde 1988, en Long Island, New York City y New Jersey. Es la única que tiene 4 diferentes ediciones, donde usted puede leer las noticias locales e internacionales y colocar su anuncio para su comunidad. Atención empresarios, comerciantes y profesionales. Si usted desea aumentar sus ventas, llame a una de nuestras oficinas al 1-888-928-11.
We try to make the office more of a family type.
The office here is amazing. The staff here is amazing. Everybody makes you feel welcome. There's nobody who doesn't make you feel uncomfortable.
We do no-fault accidents, we do work-related slip and falls, major meds, sports-related injuries. So we do a lot of different, we just don't treat just one type of individual. I want to treat the patient, I want the patient to get better and have a good experience in my office. It's not all about the money, it's about the patient getting better.
Ahora ya puedes vernos desde tu celular, descargando nuestra aplicación Tribuna TV desde Google Play o Apple Store. ¿Qué esperas? Descarga ya y sé parte de nuestra gran familia hispana que se conecta con nosotros. Tribuna TV, un mundo de información para ti, al alcance de tu dedo.
Escucha Tribuna Radio las 24 horas del día. Tribuna Radio desde cualquier lugar del mundo. Tribuna Radio en el www.tribunaradio.us. Tribuna Radio, la música que quieres escuchar. Tribuna Radio, la mejor programación. Tribuna Radio, programas de entrevistas. Para más información, llámanos al 1-888-900-2811, extensión 5, o escríbenos a sales@tribunaradio.us.
Tribuna TV. Te invita a, si quieres ser el productor de tu propio programa de televisión, para así formar parte de la programación de Tribuna TV, rentando tu espacio en nuestra programación, como lo han hecho nuestros productores asociados. Para más información, llámanos al 1-888-928-11, extensión 7, o visítanos en la web al www.tribunatv.us.
Sigue en sintonía de nuestra programación.
Aquí estamos de regreso nuevamente con nuestro senador John Brooks, candidato para el Distrito 8 del Senado Estatal del Estado de Nueva York. Mi gente, acuérdense, el martes 6 de noviembre de 6 de la mañana a 9 de la noche son las elecciones de medio término en Estados Unidos. Específicamente en Nueva York tenemos al senador John Brooks por el Distrito 8 del Senado que se está postulando. Tenemos a Rainer Taylor por el Distrito 18 de la Asamblea Estatal. Tenemos a John Bide por el Distrito 20 por la ciudad de Long Beach. Tenemos a Micaela Solalles por el Distrito 22 en Elmont. Tenemos a Kimberly Pierre por el pueblo de Babylon, y tenemos a Mónica Martínez que está haciéndole por el Distrito 3 del Senado Estatal del Estado de Nueva York, y obviamente el asambleísta Phil Ramos por el Distrito 6 de la Asamblea Estatal del Estado de Nueva York. Estas son las personas que están corriendo al nivel de la legislatura del Estado de Nueva York. Obviamente tenemos al gobernador Cuomo, Leticia James como está corriendo para la fiscalía, y tenemos a nuestro controlador Tom DiNapoli, que se está reeligiendo nuevamente para su posición como controlador del Estado de Nueva York. Así que abran los ojos, escuchen, lean, empápense, sepan cuáles son los temas que lo afectan a cada uno de ustedes, y sepan quiénes son las personas que han venido aquí al programa para votar. And let me not forget our judges, okay? So we have amazing judges that are also going to be on the ballot on November 6th. We have Helen Bucinas running for the Supreme Court in Nassau County. We have Judge Andrea Phoenix also running for District Court in Nassau County, and Engel is also running for re-election District Court. I'm trying to remember all the names, but please make sure you understand the importance of having mind-like judges in our regular courts and on our Supreme Courts that represent all the interests of all the people that live here in Long Island. Before we continue with Senator Brooks, I just wanted to give my condolences to all the families of the victims of this atrocity that happened this weekend in Pennsylvania in the Tree of Life massacre. I have to tell you, as a mother and as a member of our community that we represent a very diverse pool in Freeport, I'm heartbroken, because it seems that year tras year, and now it seems like every other week or maybe every other month, because of the rhetoric that's happening nationwide, we're seeing more and more violence, and not even places of worships are being respected. We saw that when Dylan went and shot up the Baptist church in the South last year, and it's just the continuing of violence. And I think we need, as members of society and as humans, to really look deep inside us and think, what is happening? Why is this being triggered? Tenemos que darle el pésame a todas las familias judías que perdieron seres queridos este fin de semana en Pensilvania por las atrocidades de violencia que fueron causadas a esta comunidad, y que ha sido devastadora no solamente para el pueblo de Pensilvania, pero para toda el área triestatal, incluyendo Nueva York, y todas nuestras amistades judías que esto lo ha impactado. Pero esto habla sobre la retórica que viene desde el presidente, ¿verdad?, bajando con su negatividad y todo eso, y ha creado esta ola de violencia que parece que está pasando cada otra semana. Entonces tenemos que darnos cuenta de eso. ¿Quiénes son estas personas que vamos a elegir el martes 6 de noviembre? Tenemos que ver quiénes son las personas que van a seguir empujando ese tipo de agenda para representarnos a nosotros. And I said, the last thing that I said in Spanish is, we need to be mindful of who are the ones pushing this type of rhetoric to attack and represent us in the nation. So.
Okay, and just I want to add to that. I think without question, the events in this past week, the shooting in particular, was very much a tragic event, number one. It's a clear indication to us that in this country we do have a mental health crisis.
Yes.
And we have got to focus on that. In addition, it underscores once again that we have people that are acting out against society. In this case, both events in this past week, the people
Correct.
are giving an indication that they have a problem, and nothing's done. In New York State, the governor has proposed a bill, a red flag bill, which would allow school districts, administrators, and teachers to alert authorities where someone is acting out, if you will. Perhaps they have access to guns. We have a chance to do an investigation on those and take those guns for a short period of time. In both events this past week, with the bombing attempts
Absolutely.
and the shooting itself, the individuals involved were clearly showing they were acting out. There were people aware of what they were doing. We need a national red flag.
Absolutely.
Also, where people can alert people to what's going on. So I think I share your concern, and we've got to recognize we do have a mental health crisis here, and there's more we have to do in smart and safe gun safety bills. And,
Absolutely.
something we have to work on.
Él acaba de decir que él está de acuerdo que tenemos un problema de salud mental en Estados Unidos, y aquí en el estado de Nueva York el gobernador Cuomo acaba de pasar lo que se llama la ley de la banderita roja, que es una ley donde las personas dentro de las escuelas o en cualquier otra parte, si ven una persona que está actuando media rara, incómoda, dando signos como que van a hacer algo violento y todo eso, se pueden reportar, y en ese entonces se le van a quitar las armas si tienen esas armas y se van a monitorear, porque obviamente es algo sumamente serio que pone todas las vidas de nosotros en peligro. Senator, right before we went to commercials, you were talking about, the taxes, the $1 billion, and so forth of the costs. And we get so passionate and excited that I forgot I need to go to commercials. So, but I want to make sure you continue to talk about that so people understand what the impact is and what it's for. Yo acabo de decirle que por favor continúe con el tema antes de irnos a los anuncios anteriormente, que estabas hablando de los impuestos y de los billones de dólares y el impacto que esto tenía.
So let's use a simple example. As you said, we've established a $10,000 cap.
Correct.
On deductibility. So to make a very simple example, if someone has $20,000 in property taxes today, and let's just say they paid $10,000 in income and other taxes, in the past they had a $30,000 deduction that was fully deducted from their federal return.
Correct.
Today, under the new tax law beginning next April, that will be capped at $10,000. So they will actually pay $30,000 in taxes again, but they'll only be able to deduct the $10,000. Problem one. Problem two, the other $20,000 that they paid in taxes become taxable income, so they'll be taxed on that. So the Republican Congress has been able to do what we once thought was impossible. They put taxes on your taxes. So as I said, that's going to result in New York State with about an $18 billion tax increase overall. So what do? The Republicans in the Senate elected to do nothing. I worked with several folks in Albany to take a look at how can we mitigate some of this expense.
Correct.
And as we know, when we look at our taxes, the driving tax is school taxes. So we examined how much each district is spending per student, what state aid they get, what their residential tax levy is, what their commercial tax levy is. And we came up with a program to provide tax relief where we're going to cap the percentage of funding from residential tax to 50% of the total school spending. This is going to result in over $2 billion tax relief statewide like I said, and we talked, Long Island doesn't get a fair share of state aid.
Absolutely.
The tax relief on Long Island will be $1.3 billion.
Wow. Hold on that thought right there. It's a lot to translate. So, ¿se acuerdan cuando nos fuimos a los anuncios? Estaba diciendo que al gobierno federal puso un pare en $10,000. Entonces, si usted antes tenía $10,000 más $10,000 de un tipo de impuesto, entonces vamos a decir que usted antes podía deducir $30,000 de sus impuestos. Ahora solamente va a poder deducir $10,000. Pero ¿qué pasa? Es otro $20,000. Ahora usted va a pagar impuestos sobre impuestos. Usted va a estar pagando más. Entonces, esta ceguedad que nos vendió el actual presidente durante campaña, que iba a reducir los impuestos para la clase media, supposedly they were going to reduce taxes for the middle class. It's not happening here in Long Island. I can tell you that right now. El senador Brooks acaba de decir que no, que eso no va a pasar. Entonces eso va a tener un impacto de $18 billones de impuestos. Entonces se reunieron y estaban discutiendo cómo era que iban a aliviar este tipo de impuestos específicamente para nosotros los residentes aquí del área de Long Island. Y obviamente el control actual en el Senado no se quedaron tranquilos, no hicieron nada. Entonces se reunieron la otra coalición y ahora ellos van a poder tratar de ver cómo al nivel de los impuestos del estado de Nueva York, y también calculando lo que las escuelas locales gastan, lo que gastan en impuestos y todo eso, para hacer lo que se llama el cap, ¿verdad? Ponerle un paro averaje a esto, y esto va a regresar a Long Island $1.2 billones. So I left at $1.2 billion.
Okay, so 1.3.
1.3.
So the proposed bill will have a 3-year life to it. And in that period of time, we have to do one of two things. We either have to change the federal tax laws, or we have to change the way we fund education and government in this state, because we are a state that funds everything right now by means of state and local taxes.
Correct.
So, if the Senate is up for grabs right now in terms of the majority, we think it's important the Democrats get majority, and then we can get this legislation through. It's the first step towards the correction. Like I said, there's an $18 billion problem here. This is providing about $2 billion relief right now. We have to do more. But the majority party chose to do nothing. They've stood by and let the president continue with this tax policy. There's an effort in Washington right now to make it permanent. It's something New York State in particular is the highest donor state. We send more than $48 billion a year more to Washington each year than we get back. This will add another 18. So we have to work hard at this thing, and we're going to have to look hard at how either we fund government here or we change the federal tax law.
Señores, eso es un punto sumamente importante. El senador Brooks acaba de decir que el estado de Nueva York contribuye $48 billones al gobierno federal. $48 billones al gobierno federal. Entonces, con este cambio ahora de no poder deducir los impuestos locales, vamos a añadirle $18 billones más. Estamos hablando casi de $60 billones. Y el estado de Nueva York no está recibiendo esos fondos de regreso a través del gobierno federal. Esta enmienda de este bill que acaba de hablar nuestro senador Brooks, esta propuesta es por 3 años. Entonces, en estos 3 años tienen que pasar 3 cosas. O en Washington, D.C., la Cámara de Representantes y los senadores federales cambian esta ley que es desastrosa, o en el estado de Nueva York tiene que cambiar la forma de cómo hacen los fondos para las escuelas públicas y cómo recauda los fondos a través de los impuestos de las propiedades. Así que, señores, piénsenlo bien. Acuérdense que el gobierno que está ahora en el control quiere poner esta enmienda de impuestos permanente. Cuando ellos decían que iban a bajar los impuestos a la clase media, Entonces la clase media ahora mismo es la que está pagándole todos los impuestos, mientras las personas que están en el 1% básicamente no están pagando nada de impuestos. Así que eso es una cosa sumamente seria. Senator, I think I heard some endorsements around there. Can you talk a little bit about who has endorsed you and what is the significance of that? Well, al senador lo han endorsado cierto tipo de organizaciones que son sumamente prestigiosas e importantes. Vamos a ver cuáles son.
Well, I guess starting with the newspapers, we were very pleased to receive the endorsements of both Newsday and the New York Times.
Excellent.
Both, I think uniquely in each of the endorsements, they point out that I'm not a regular politician, and I'm not.
Absolutely.
And we're trying to work out the problems that we have in Albany and come up with creative solutions. And that's what we've been trying to do. And I think both papers pointed out the efforts that we've made and that we do have proposals to address some of these problems. They also pointed out that my opponent doesn't have an understanding of many of these problems. And we're in a tough spot right now, and you see it. The economy at the national level is in trouble, particularly as we see the deficit increasing. Here on Long Island, housing is becoming less and less affordable.
Absolutely.
We're seeing far too many of our children leave Long Island. Our seniors are leaving Long Island. Businesses are leaving Long Island. We need to put together programs that are going to address these issues. The opioid crisis we have here is just a tragic story. We have to do more.
Yeah.
We need people going to Albany that are going up there with one purpose.
And he didn't show up to one of the debates, too.
He didn't show up to several debates.
Scare. Oh, wow.
But I think the current Senate, in my opinion, is there to serve special interests. The majority really looks to serve the special interest groups. We need to serve the people in this state. In Albany, for years, problems have been kicked down the road. Mm-hmm. This particularly happened this last session when they just picked up and left. We can't have any more of that. We have got to recognize we have a crisis here in how we fund education. We lean too much on school taxes. School taxes are driven by assessed value of the home, which in many cases have nothing to do with the financial condition of the family, the ability to pay.
Correct.
We need to make sure we put in place a system where every student in every school district in the state has an opportunity for a quality education. That we recognize we have students with learning disabilities and other problems, and the funding for those students are provided.
Let me translate. Es sumamente importante. El senador Brooks ha sido endorsado por el prestigioso periódico The New York Times, las Horas de Nueva York, y el periódico local Newsday. Y ellos, la razón por que endorsaron al senador es porque no es un político común y corriente, no es un político veterano de muchos años en el sentido de que lo manejan los intereses específicos de grandes corporaciones, sino porque es una persona que sí comprende a las necesidades de Long Island, las necesidades específicamente del Distrito 8 que él representa. Él dice que es sumamente importante que la persona que represente nuestros intereses reconozca y sepa que nosotros no podemos seguir dando los fondos escolares a través de los impuestos recaudados de nuestras viviendas, porque por la mayoría de veces las personas que residen en las casas y están pagando esos impuestos no tienen los fondos y las finanzas necesarias. Estamos viendo que nuestras personas de edad avanzada se están yendo. Nuestros jóvenes no pueden vivir en Long Island porque está demasiado caro, se están yendo. Y ese es el sinónimo de cosas que vemos. Además de eso, el oponente del senador Brooks, el periódico de New York Times y Newsday dijeron que él no tiene conocimiento de cómo manejar esos problemas que tenemos al nivel del estado de Nueva York. Mi gente, vamos a ir a unos anuncios de nuestros patrocinadores y cuando regresamos a la última etapa del programa de hoy en día.
Sigue en sintonía de nuestra programación.
La Tribuna Hispana USA es el periódico para los que leemos en español. En circulación desde 1988, en Long Island, New York City y New Jersey. Es la única que tiene 4 diferentes ediciones, donde usted puede leer las noticias locales e internacionales y colocar su anuncio para su comunidad. Atención empresarios, comerciantes y profesionales. Si usted desea aumentar sus ventas, llame a una de nuestras oficinas al 1-888-928-11.
We try to make the office more of a family type.
The office here is amazing. The staff here is amazing. Everybody makes you feel welcome. There's nobody who doesn't make you feel uncomfortable.
So we do no-fault accidents, we do work-related slip and falls, major med, sports-related injuries. So we do a lot of different, we just don't treat just one type of individual. I want to treat the patient, I want the patient to get better and have a good experience in my office. It's not all about the money, it's about the patient getting better.
Ahora ya puedes vernos desde tu celular, descargando nuestra aplicación Tribuna TV desde Google Play o Apple Store. ¿Qué esperas? Descarga ya y sé parte de nuestra gran familia hispana que se conecta con nosotros. Tribuna TV, un mundo de información para ti, al alcance de tu dedo.
Escucha Tribuna Radio las 24 horas del día. Tribuna Radio desde cualquier lugar del mundo. Tribuna Radio en el www.tribunaradio.us. Tribuna Radio, la música que quieres escuchar. Tribuna Radio, la mejor programación. Tribuna Radio, programas de entrevistas. Para más información, llámanos al 1-888-900-2811, extensión 5, o escríbenos a sales@tribunaradio.us.
Tribuna TV. Te invita a, si quieres ser el productor de tu propio programa de televisión, para así formar parte de la programación de Tribuna TV, rentando tu espacio en nuestra programación, como lo han hecho nuestros productores asociados. Para más información, llámanos al 1-888-928-11, extensión 7, o visítanos en la web al www.tribunatv.us.
Sigue en sintonía de nuestra programación.
Y así estamos de regreso a la última etapa de los Vientos del Saber. Como saben, nuevamente tenemos unas elecciones sumamente importantes este martes 6 de noviembre. Obviamente a las personas que vivimos aquí en el estado de Nueva York, o es de 6 de la mañana a 9 de la noche o de 7 de la mañana a 9 de la noche, por favor averigüen en sus áreas y comunidades de qué hora van a estar las urnas para votar. Si tienen que salir de vacaciones o tienen una emergencia de trabajo y todo eso, pueden ir a votar a sus centros electorales en cada comunidad. Por ejemplo, en Nassau County, you can go to 240 Old Country Road, 5th floor, Board of Elections, and vote and cast your vote if you need to go out for emergency reasons or something right before you leave. Si pueden ir al 240 de la Old Country Road en Mineola, el 5º piso es la Junta de Votaciones del Condado de Nassau, y en Suffolk County está localizada en Yampank. Así que si pueden entrar a Google o cualquier otra cosa cibernética para buscar la dirección donde se encuentran los sitios de votaciones si no van a estar presentes el 6 de noviembre para votar. If you have absentee ballots, right, or you requested absentee ballots, make sure you get those back. Send them back, vote, call your kids, your grandkids, your friend, your cousin that's not in the district for whatever reason, and remind them to make sure that they get those absentee ballots back to the Board of Elections. Si tienen familiares, hijos, nietos, sobrinos que están fuera del estado y no van a estar el 6 y se le mandó el voto ausente, por favor llámenlo por teléfono y recuérdenle que regresen la votación. So, you know, right before we went to commercials, you know, you were talking about who endorsed you and so forth, and I know for a fact that President Obama has this nice endorsement of you and Governor Cuomo, the trades. Let's talk a little bit about that, because there's a lot of people that we have a lot of nurses, you know, union members, healthcare that are watching the show, and I want to make sure you understand that your union is supporting our great senator and the reasons why.
We're very fortunate. As I said, Governor Cuomo, the entire state ticket, has endorsed us. Both county executives have endorsed us. And for the second time, I was honored to get President Obama's endorsement. And I think it's reflective of what we're trying to do. We have a very diverse district, and we're in all of the communities.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, as we look at what's happening in New York State and a lot of what didn't happen in the legislature,
correct,
it affects many of our union groups, from the teachers to the medical caregivers to the trades, the AFL-CIO, the Carpenters Union, the Communications Union, down the line. Every one of those endorsements not only endorsed us, but they're out with hundreds of members making phone calls and hitting doors for us.
That's right.
We're in a situation right now that the folks in labor and the folks in government recognize that in Washington we're moving in the wrong direction, particularly when it comes to protecting workers' rights, protecting health care, creating jobs, living wages. In Albany, we've made the correct moves, but so much legislation was passed in session that was needed was not passed. And the unions and labor, nurses, all of those groups have come on board, and we're going to flip the state Senate, and we're going to get New York State Senate moving in the right direction again. We're going to address issues like women's reproductive rights, like the Child Victims Act, gun safety rules that mean things, protection in various labor agreements that have not been there. Make sure people have a living wage. We've got to look at health insurance. We got so many people today, as they move into their older years, or people with disabilities. The workers, the medical caregivers for those have been grossly underpaid, number one, and there aren't enough of them available. We've got to make some reforms so that we have folks in those areas can have career paths and make a living wage, and we're in a situation where those people are provided for.
Wow, increíble. Entonces, el senador Brooks ha sido endorsado por todas las organizaciones de trabajo, por ejemplo, las organizaciones de labor, que son el AFL de Long Island, el 1199 SEUI, y las otras uniones. Básicamente, ustedes saben que las uniones son las que crearon y protegieron el horario de 8 a 5 de la tarde, las 40 horas por semana. Entonces es importante, y ellos se han dado cuenta que la destrucción y el caos que hay en Washington D.C., en el Capitolio de Estados Unidos, ha creado un sinónimo de cosas que no protege a los trabajadores. Por eso ellos se han unido y han realizado y se han dado cuenta que es importante que tengamos personas en el Senado y en la Cámara Alta Estatal Legislativa que entienda las uniones escolares, ¿verdad? The Teachers Union, the Nurses Union, las uniones de las enfermeras, la unión de la policía, la unión de los bomberos, etcétera, etcétera. Porque en otras comunidades los bomberos sí trabajan, por ejemplo en la ciudad de Nueva York. Entonces estas son las cosas que tenemos que tener en mente. Él también dijo que el presidente Obama por la segunda vez lo acaba de endorsar, al igual que los ejecutivos del condado de Nassau, Suffolk, Steve Ballone y Laura Curran le han dado su patrocinio al senador Brooks. And I just want to touch on something very important and that you mentioned also, and it's you know that this whole bunch of conversation during the the Supreme Court hearings and so forth, and one of the biggest issue, and I say, you know, I'm Roman Catholic and so forth, but I'm pro-choice because each woman should have their right. Like, I personally don't believe in abortion, but that's me. I shouldn't be imposed on someone else. And I think that the problem that we've seen is that other people want to impose their ways on other people, and that's, in my opinion, a violation of that individual's right. But the key thing is that if God forbid, you know, a new case of Roe versus Wade gets to the Supreme Court and it gets overturned, we are going to need people that are going to stand behind women's right in New York State, specifically in the Senate. Because if not, what we're going to see is we're going to revert back to the 70s and 60s where there were back alleys abortions, and a whole bunch of women lost their lives, became sterile because of the atrocities that were being done. And you know, it's interesting because people are like, well, blah, 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 they shouldn't do it. Well, I think to procreate, you need two people. So just to put the blame on one person by itself, I don't think it's fair. And that's one of the things that we saw years back. You know, I've had the opportunity to speak to women from that time era and the things that they saw as nurses and as healthcare practitioners during that time, and the fear that they lived in. And I think that, you know, we need to keep that in mind. And also, you talked about healthcare, you know, the care in healthcare at the federal level, and now we have people that have cancer, pre-existing conditions, that may be affected, and we need to have a government, a local state government in New York that if in fact this happened, we are protected. Y yo que lo voy a decir en español. Una de las cosas importantes que ha pasado es que mucha gente decía que no, que la estatua de la Corte Suprema de Roe versus Wade, que es sobre el aborto, que no puede ser cambiada. Pero si es cambiada, en el estado de Nueva York se va a necesitar tener personas abiertas, de mentalidad abierta en el Senado, donde se tomen decisiones a nivel estatal que van a proteger los derechos de las mujeres. Yo no puedo imponer mi creencia y mi derecho en otra persona, porque eso es una violación de la creencia y la forma de vivir de esa persona. Entonces, por eso es importante que tengamos personas que sepan respetar las ideologías, ya sean religiosas o personales, de las demás personas, y por eso tenemos que tener personas como el senador Brooke y las otras personas que están corriendo al nivel del estado de Nueva York. Por ejemplo, en el distrito 7 del Senado, Anna Kaplan, en la parte norte de Long Island, está corriendo también para senadora, y es importante que todos los latinos y personas que están viendo este programa en esa área salgan y apoyen a Anna Kaplan. So Anna Kaplan is running for the Senate 7th seat in the North Shore. So if you live in that area, you need to come out and make sure you vote, just like we're going to vote for Senator Brooks in the 8th senatorial district of Long Island, and the 3rd district for Monica Martinez. So, because the implications are very, very serious. Las implicaciones van a ser muy, muy serias si la persona como el senador Brooke no están elegidas para el martes 6 y que represente a nosotros.
So we are in a unique situation right now in this state. And when it comes to Roe versus Wade, we have to codify that.
Yep.
And we have to recognize you can have your position on the question of abortion, but we've got to be in a position where a woman has the right to choose. And if she decides that she is going to have an abortion, we've got to make sure she has the proper medical care. We can't go back to what happened years ago. In terms of medical care at a national level, the Obamacare is under attack by the president.
Absolutely.
1 minute they want to rule out pre-existing conditions. Next minute they're back in. We have an obligation to make sure every citizen in this country has access to acceptable medical care. And we have to accept the fact that we have people that have pre-existing conditions, and they must be covered under our medical care. It is the responsibility right now of the federal government to address that issue, and if you remember when the president was running for election, he said he was going to give you a new plan that had better coverage and it cost less money. And then the next words out of his mouth, oh, health insurance. Who ever thought it was this complicated? Well, it is complicated, but it's something that every one of us needs. And we've got to address that problem. And if they don't do it in the federal government, we're going to have to do it in the state government. As far as women's reproductive rights, we have to codify Roe versus Wade. In the event there's another case that's brought to the Supreme Court, women in the state of New York need to have their rights protected.
Claro. Entonces, la importancia de tener la mayoría en el Senado estatal es tener personas que respeten las decisiones de tomar, ya sea las mujeres y todo eso, pero también la decisión de las leyes de salud, ¿verdad?, a nivel federal. Por ejemplo, en el nivel federal decían preexistente, no preexistente, que si la iban a poner, que no la iban a poner. Entonces es importante que ese tipo de cosas sepamos. Eso no significa que el senador no va a apoyar los derechos de cada persona. Él va a apoyar todos los derechos de las personas, pero es importante que sepamos eso. So, Senator, what are the districts again, the towns in your district that we want to make sure people that are watching, if they have a relative or if they live in these towns, they understand that they can come out and support Senator John Brooks?
So the simplistic description of the district, it's southeast Nassau County, southwest Suffolk County. The district runs from parts of Baldwin all the way over to Lindenhurst. It runs up through Baldwin, Freeport, Roosevelt, Merrick, North Merrick, Belmore, North Belmore, Wantor, Seaford, Massapequa, Massapequa Park, East Massapequa, Amityville, North Amityville, Wyandanch, Wheatley Heights, Copiague, Lindenhurst, parts of South Farmingdale, East Farmingdale, a little bit of Farmingdale, a little sliver of Uniondale, and the district is one in which many of our communities are facing some significant challenges.
Absolutely.
All of our districts need attention. We've been trying to do that. We're spending time in each and every district. We're working with community groups. One of the things I've done since I've been in office is put together work groups on some issues. After we're reelected, we're gonna again make available work groups that people can get involved with.
Absolutely, and each community is different. And I know you've done an amazing job with the opioid crisis, you know, with the drugs in those communities that are being affected. And you know which communities you are there. It's pretty much, you know, the bread and butter, but it's everywhere. But you know, as a mother, I can say that you've done a great job on that. So ya saben, el senador le dijo las comunidades, yo lo dije al principio del programa. Acuérdense, martes 6 de noviembre, de 6 de la mañana a 9 de la noche en los centros locales de votación que ustedes siempre frecuentan. Si no pueden salir a votar ese día, si van a estar fuera del condado o fuera del estado de Nueva York, por favor, acuérdense de votar por voto ausente. Please, please, please. If you're not going to be in New York on November 6th, either for work or because you think you're going to get sick, just kidding, or because you have an emergency, please make sure you cast that vote before you leave. If you already requested for an absentee ballot and you haven't sent it back, please send it in. It's very important that each and every one of you get out to vote. To my young crew, my youth, my 18 to 26-year-old, please make sure you go out and vote, because guess what? I don't want to hear you complaining that you don't like what's happening if you don't go out and cast your vote. And that goes for everybody. 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at your regular voting location. Gracias y nos vemos la próxima semana en Los Vientos del Saber. Thank you, Senator Brooks, for being and coming to our show and for letting our audience and our voters understand why it's important to make sure we get you back into the New York State Senate.
Thank you very much. And remember, this election is very much about you, your children, and your future. Take the time to vote.